Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Future Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Muller. This is the podcast where we decode how founders, leaders, and execs are working smarter by using systems automation and AI. If you're looking to future-proof your business, you're definitely in the right place. And before we dive in, as we always do, if you're a founder, leader, C-suite exec, and you're feeling the pressure to grow faster with leaner teams, we're constantly here at Future Proof developing new leading edge AI solution. Last week alone, we helped a client save over 40 hours a month, which is 10 hours a week, just by putting one of our AI solutions in. So if you want to learn more, we don't do any pitch. We just try to help. 30-minute no pitch collab session. Just check the links in the show notes. We're happy to jump on. But let's dive into today's episode and really exciting guest. So Maitreya from Bolna.ai, and he goes by Matty. So we're gonna really just kind of have a really good conversation with Matty today. Matty, welcome. Thank you for spending the time with us.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
All right. So as we always do, let's jump right in. Let's talk about your background. How did you get to starting this company?
Sure. So if I had to answer in one sentence, I think I watched The Social Network when I was in ninth grade, and I was like, I want this kind of life. But I think that was probably the first time I sort of thought of, how it would be a great experience and how I would love to be in a situation where I am sort of leading a company, in a situation where I am sort of solving real problems and making, actually creating a rift in a particular industry, right? So right from school, always loved leadership positions, the standard, the head boy of the school and all of that. And even in college, always very focused on trying to, be in these leadership roles where you're actually solving ground level problems. So did a lot of debating in college, worked on, was the president of the debating society, all of that. And just sort of realized that, working in a team, sort of leading a team towards achieving pretty big goals is something I really liked. And got into consulting. Right out of college, I worked at Bain Company for a couple of years. So it was a great jump from a very sheltered university life to right into one of the biggest companies in the world right now.
Yeah.
And super exciting. Worked
your
across.
Background's great. You started with Bain, right?
Yeah, it was a great place to start. I think absolutely stellar folks. Still in contact with a lot of them. Most of them have been the first few clients, the first few customers of my startup. Really dependent on the alumni group as well for any sort of advice, any sort of suggestions. It's a very it's a great culture to be a part of. Always wanted to have more ownership, always wanted to build something of my own from scratch. So right out of Bain, I left in around 2 years, joined Sequoia-funded startup called Probo, which is an opinion trading startup, similar to like Polymarket or Kalshi. You may have heard of these businesses. So that's where I sort of understood how a startup works, what are the different verticals, what it means like to actually be on ground solving problems, having week-long cycles and creating impact in that. Really propelled me to want to start something of my own. So it's been around 1.5 years since we started building Bolna. Bolna in Hindi means to speak. And that's what we're all about. We're all about speaking, and we're all about, of course, what's the most exciting thing in the world right now, which is artificial intelligence. So we're all about making AI speak and making AI speak in a way that people will want to have conversations with it.
Yes.
So we started off as a purely horizontal infrastructure, like a platform on which developers can build voice AI agents.
Right.
And that was like the first 9 months of our journey. We got a lot of great customers across the world, primarily from...
Now, did you start with your own and training it yourself, or did you start with one of the platforms and start to build on top?
So essentially, there are foundational models that are at the bottom of this entire pyramid, which would be for voice AI. There are four primary things at the bottom, right? Which is your speech to text model, your large language model, which is your OpenAI, of course, your text to speech, and you have a telephony or a VoIP layer, right? So what Bolna was an orchestration that sort of tied
Of
all
those,
of
yeah.
these multiple models together. But it's not just like adding one to the other, because if you do that, you'll get like a very clunky sort of experience, which is
I've experienced a bunch of them that do that, Matty. So I totally get it. So this is fantastic. Yeah.
So we worked a lot on making sure the latency was low, making sure interruptions are immediate. Like for example, you're saying yeah, but I'm not stopping. But when
Right.
you want to interrupt me, I immediately stop and listen to you, right? So creating that level
Right.
of intelligence in the AI agents, that was sort of what we focused on. Back in, I would say, October, we realized that sure, our infra is great, people are using it, but we're enabling a lot of people to solve their problems. But what we really want to do is identify an industry which is broken and really try to fix it ourselves, right? Which is not just provide the tools for someone to sort it out, but actually go and solve those problems. And that's when we sort of went through our data, went through all the thousands of conversations we had, and identified like some key pillars that of what can voice AI really solve, right? I'm sure you've heard a lot about voice AI companies here and there.
Yep.
But if you think about it, there are like three key things which determine whether voice AI would be successful or not. The first is that there are a lot of repeated calls, that there are humans doing tons and tons of routine calls again and again,
Yep.
and they want to automate that. The second one is that the problem is a very call first problem. A lot of problems can be solved via chat,
Yeah.
but there are certain problems which require that element of voice, element of instantaneous vocal conversations to be solved.
Absolutely.
And
And
the
that's
third thing,
never going away. So yeah.
exactly. And the third thing is that if the person you're calling has zero interest in talking to you, it doesn't matter how successful of an infrastructure you make, your calls are never going to be good. So just going to get a
Right.
call that, hey, do you want a credit card? Hey, do you want a loan? These aren't
Right.
really going to always lead to great outcomes. And
Right.
that's where we really zeroed down on recruitment, right? Because there's a very real problem. Recruiters are spending hours and hours on a daily basis. Around 60 to 75% of a recruiter's time is just on phone calls
Yeah.
with candidates in various phases of the cycle.
Yeah.
It was a very real problem which humans were not being able to serve efficiently.
Yeah.
The second one is that it's a very voice first industry, right? You don't
Yeah.
want to send a candidate a question that, hey, how much of React JS do you know? And they reply after 2 days with a full project that they have copied from ChatGPT. You want an
Right.
immediate question with an immediate answer. You want to understand if they really want the role, if they're really good for the role or not. So it's very voice first. And thirdly, candidates want a job. So if you
Yes.
call a candidate, they want to have that conversation. They want to speak to you. So that's sort
Yeah.
of been the journey of why we decided to really solve this massive problem.
I love it. I love it. And so the deeper you get, I would imagine the more problems you can solve. And this goes back to most entrepreneurial 101, which is solve one problem for one industry, right? And you go from there. And I love what you're doing. So talk to me about some of the things, Matty, that you're seeing in the recruiting industry and the impact that your platform is having, right? If you could kind of talk us through maybe a couple clients, not specifically, just the use cases.
Sure. I can name maybe one or two very interesting use cases that we solved. So one
Yeah.
company think of any call center or think of any telecalling business, right?
Yeah.
These sort of companies get inbounds every day because it's a very
Yeah.
high attrition job. People are coming, people are leaving, and every day
Yeah.
they have like thousands of applicants who are applying for a role. Now, there's a couple of things I need to find out. One is what is their experience in telecalling. Second is what is their fluency. And of course, if you're in India or even in US, there's a lot of languages that people speak. So what all languages are you actually fluent in?
Right.
To do that, there's no software right now in which I can have a conversation and it can understand my fluency, my experience, my confidence level, my eagerness to join, and my expected salary and all of that. So what
Right.
recruiters were doing is, it was either one of two things. One was they were asking people to record a 5-minute audio.
Right.
And then based on that, they would listen to it and judge who's good or bad, who should be placed where and all of that. Or secondly, they were getting on calls and spending the whole day on calls. And what we said was, hey, instead of this, as a final step of your application platform, just get people to call a phone number. And when they call a phone number, they have a natural conversation of 5 minutes with our voice AI agent. They can do it whenever they want in the day.
Yep.
And based on preset metrics that you have, they immediately not only get a result whether they're selected or not, they also get their posting. That you are selected for this role because you already have experience in education, technology, sales in Hindi, that you're going to be working for this K-12 education company for the next 3 months.
Right.
And by doing that, we saved around 80% of recruiter time, and we increased their margin. We almost like 3x their margin, right? Based on what they were, how quickly they were
Wow.
able to onboard people. So that's a very real example. And that's a massive multi-billion-dollar industry of call centers, right? Who all face this problem. There's no escaping this problem for any for any call center or any telecalling business.
So I'm already seeing other applications. So do you have aspirations beyond recruiting, or are you going to stay in staffing and recruiting for a while?
Well, see, if you had asked me this question last year, my answer would be widely different, and that's how quick the AI world is moving, right? That you can't have a
Right.
10-year, you can't be fixed to a 10-year journey. Right now,
Right.
we
It's a 1-year
definitely
journey
think
right now.
it's a 1-year journey, and the 1-year journey is there's a lot of recruitment that needs to be fixed. There
Yes.
are, I would say, 10 steps that out of 10, 6 should already be using voice AI. The remaining 4 should start using voice AI in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So the number one goal is that this recruitment firms and staffing firms have a probably $30-40 billion business across globally right now. That's not going to evaporate when voice AI comes in. That's going to get better as they start using voice AI. So the goal right now is to be a part of making that better. And I don't think it's a 6-month or a 12-month problem. So if all's well, we should be in this space for a long time.
For a long time. Absolutely. No, it's fantastic. So talk to me about your vision. If you look down the goal for the next 1 year, do you guys have, because obviously you're going to make a big impact in this industry if done right. Tell me what you see in the industry, how this impacts it, and kind of what you see now.
Got it. So without taking any names over here, but there's like I'll just say one goal, right? And that could sort of explain what we're trying to be. There's a Fortune 500 company which hires about 500 people on a weekly or fortnightly basis, right? Massive hiring, continuously hiring. Now, if we go and tell them that, hey, you know what, we're going to do interviews using a voice AI agent, they'll just laugh us out of it. Like, please relax. We've heard of voice AI. We're not going to do all of that. So we didn't do that for them. What we told them was, you have an extremely complicated workflow. After you give the contract, let's say you give the contract to 200 people on a daily, on like 100 people on a daily basis.
Right.
The next day you have to call all of them to follow up on whether they've signed the contract or not. If they haven't, you have to ask why. Often people want to ask that, hey, you know what, I want to change the notice period. I want to change the joining date. We had discussed a CTC of 120K, but I can see only 80K in the contract letter that you signed. They want to understand what do ESOPs mean in the particular, or what do RSUs mean. So why don't we just automate that flow for you? And why don't we just create a few agents that can completely automate your post-contract workflow for these candidates? And they were like, sure, let's do that. And right now we're doing around 800 calls a day just for this one use case, right? And that's the point. So this Fortune 500 company, in 6 months, we want to be solving more than this one workflow for them. We want to be solving 10
So this
workflows
is just, let me solve one piece at a time, and then they can see the value, because it's hard to get your head around the value. And if you start with, hey, we're going to fix all this stuff with voice AI, right? Then they shut down because they're like, no, like you said, they'll laugh you out of the building. But if, hey, I can just take this one thing that's mundane and your team doesn't even want to do it, we start there. Then they start to see, oh, what's the next thing they can help?
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
that's the plan.
Matty, you are sitting on, to me, a gem of an idea. I said to you before the podcast, if you told me to list the top 3 to 5 industries that are the most steep for disruption, staffing and recruiting would be at or near the top. And so kudos to you for doing this. I think with your connections in Bain, that alumni network, you're going to have a lot of people keeping their eyes on you, and this is going to be really exciting. Talk to me about where you see AI and the evolution, right? Because we're here now, and you know what it can do today. And you also can look down the road a year and say, I know what and it's also going to be able to. What do you see?
I mean, it's moving at breakneck speed, right? Even if you look at it just 1 year ago, people were talking all about, you need RAG systems, you need small language models to do basic conversations. Yesterday, Sam Altman announced GPT 4.1, right? Which has such a big context window and is so quick that you can actually
and
just
the memory
pass
is so
in
great.
You can pass in whole documents. It's probably massive businesses who were built purely on RAG and all are trembling right now, right? So essentially, what this means is everything's evolving very quickly. I think the one thing, however, that will remain is human to human relationships. So that is, I think, it might be a very contradictory opinion to what we think that AI is going to take over. And AI will take over, but the one thing that it won't be able to take over is the trust that two individuals have in each other, right? And that's sort of what's going to differentiate a company that wins versus a company that falls, which is if two people have trust in each other, then they both know that they're going to use AI for their mutual benefit. So even if GPT 20.0 comes out tomorrow, which sort of handles recruitment and all of that, the company that's going to win in recruitment is one which the recruiters can trust. They know that, okay, whatever comes new in the AI market, these guys are going to help me find the best candidate for my company.
And it's so funny you're saying that, Matty. That's how we approach it from our side too. Is the solutions are going to come and go. If you're running a business, you shouldn't worry about it. You should have a trusted partner, right? In your case, if you're staffing and recruiting, Bolna is your trusted partner. And however AI changes, you're going to make sure that the best for staffing and recruiting is being used. Yeah.
That's what my vision is. Yeah.
And so I can envision, Matty, that this is going to fit into larger, because you're inside the HR ecosystem, and inside the HR ecosystem are a myriad of solutions, staffing and recruiting, and really departments, if you think about it, right? Staffing and recruiting is one, right? There's training, there's there's benefits, there's payroll, all this stuff sits in those departments. Do you envision this fitting in to the workdays of the world and the HR systems of the world? Or do you envision this kind of people starting to go, wow, there's better solutions siloed together, right, than not? How do you see that? Or maybe it's both.
It is a mix of both. And I think we can come back to the pillars of how we'll automate it. It has to be large volume, it has to be high intent, it has to be voice first. So there are a lot of places within HR, within payroll, within questions that you have about certain policies that can start being automated. From a pure volume first approach, recruitment is still probably more than all of these other things combined.
I totally agree. It's the starting point, right? Yeah.
It's the starting point, and it's the big funnel point, right? Everything else is on for the top 1% of people who are selected from the 100 people that applied, right?
Yeah.
So, and voice AI or any AI works best on volumes. If I have to have one conversation, I'll probably prefer a human to do it. If I want to have 100 conversations, I'll definitely prefer an AI to have it. Right? So that's why it's always going to be volume focused. So even if we look at very specifically just the staffing, if you look at just staffing, we'll have to first identify what are the problems that are keeping HR teams busy the most, right? What is a repeatable sort of conversation that they're having on an hourly basis? It could be about pay slips, it could be about reimbursements, right? And then that is the thing that you have to solve. So that would sort of be the journey going forward. Having said that, of course, in 5 years, I think it'll be a voice AI plus human in the loop sort of approach for most conversations that we have on a regular basis. Maybe apart from the ones you have with your friends where you're just having fun. Everything else is going to be a layer of AI attached to it to make it more efficient.
I totally agree. I think your recruitment tool is going to be basically a co-pilot for your recruiters. And I think they're going to love it because it's going to allow them to spend more quality time with the right candidates that they want to talk to rather than the mundane funnel part, right?
Exactly.
And the documentation piece, which I think you're solving that. It's fantastic. So, tell me something about the industry in general. Like, do you see a lot of change happening? Do you see people fighting the change? Are they receptive to the change?
I think surprisingly, it's an industry which is very receptive to the change. And it's because, unfortunately, in the world we are today, recruiters and candidates both don't consider recruitment cycles as a very fun thing. I mean, you'll see candidates often fed up about, hey, I had 20 calls and just interviewing here and there. I have no idea when's the next round. I have no idea if I'm going to get selected or not. I got rejected after spending, 2 months waiting for an offer. There's so many horror stories from their perspective. And even from a recruiter perspective, they're calling 100 people only to select 2 candidates who end up maybe not taking the offer.
Yeah.
They're very receptive to all sorts of
plus they don't like leaving people like the other 98 that don't get selected, right?
Exactly.
They hate that they can't tell them, hey, you weren't selected, right? But they don't have time to do that. But with your tool, they could. and say,
Exactly.
look, you were great. We're going to keep you on file, but there's so many things that could make the recruiting process better.
Even cross recruitment is something that people are exploring over here, because right now, let's say you're a massive company, you have a customer service arms and a sales arm, right?
Yeah.
Both, and for a fresher role, you want someone who's good at pitching. You want someone who's good with their words. And let's
Yeah.
say you have 10 great customer service folks. It makes sense to, and you only want to hire 5. It makes sense to ask the next 5 whether they want to do a sales job, and actually give
Yeah.
those sort of interviews to them as well, to just understand if they are fit over here. This is something that's very tough to do on a human level, because the person who's hiring here has to call the person who's hiring in the other team, ask them, hey, you know what, I've got 5 kids, they might be good for you, are you interested, all of that.
Right.
But with AI, you can sort of do this matching and make those decisions yourself. So that's one pretty big change. Yeah, that's what we're seeing.
That's awesome, man. I'm so excited for you. I really think that this platform is so needed in the marketplace, and kudos for what you're doing. I always ask the one final question, which is, tell me something you use, Matty. You use AI yourself, right, to make yourself a more productive leader and founder that you think other founders and leaders might find interesting.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the things that I use are, every tool we use has started adopting AI. But a lot of AI first tools, I am slightly traditional in the sense that I still prefer ChatGPT for almost everything. I know that there are people who use Cursor for coding and Claude for some basic things, and they'll have their own different AI for writing posts and all of that. I just have different ChatGPT assistants that sort of help me with posting things online, planning like a fundraiser, or planning my week, writing code. I don't code myself, but if you look at our website, Bolna.dev, it's something that ChatGPT has sort of built for me. So I would say the vibe coding is something that, of course, I'm also doing. And even things such as troubleshooting and all, right? I think for me, the experience and the...
Before you say that, Matty, what did you use something like Replit, or did you use Bolt.new or Lovable to do that? What did you use?
So Replit and Vercel for the basics, and then ChatGPT for everything else, right? For all the fine tuning, all the newer modules you want to add, newer templates, newer formats.
I've had people ask me, what do people prefer on the no code stuff? So Replit, okay, that you're the second person to use in the last couple of days use Replit. That's great. No, keep going.
But I think Lovable is also something that's really picking up these days. Heard a lot of good things about it. And yeah, I think apart from that, for productivity and all, Notion and Superhuman are the other two ones that I use. One very interesting app we've started using, not really AI first, but something quite interesting, is it's called Gather.town. It's essentially, so we are a remote team primarily. Some people work in SF, some in Bangalore, some in Delhi. So it's sort of like a Pokemon Go type world of an office, where you have like your small avatars, and you can go to each other's rooms. You can have meetings, you can have a coffee break, you can have one-on-one chat somewhere else. So it's we sort of realized we took it on as a joke at the start that, hey, you know what, let's just see what it does. But we've seen it actually is helping boost morale and our productivity. So just a shout out.
I had a podcast guest on, and they were using Row.am, and same kind of concept. Fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah. You check out Gather.town as well.
I absolutely will. Look, there's lots of solutions out there, and no, this is fantastic. Matty, tell everybody that wants to, that's in the staffing and recruiting world, or just does staffing and recruiting for their company, how can they start to engage with your platform? And we'll put all the links when we go live, but I want everybody to kind of talk to you about that.
Sure. So if you want to try it out, we have a live platform. So log on, put in your job description, connect your ATS, and in 5 minutes, you should be able to call each and every candidate and have a basic first level of screening done right at your fingertips. Anything more complex, anything specific you want, of course, we're a young startup. So always there for our customers, always ready to help, always ready to get on a call and sort of troubleshoot things for you.
And it's Bolna.ai, right?
Bolna.ai.
Yeah. So that's Bolna.ai. Guys, honestly, definitely try this out. This is exactly the kind of platform thinking that we need. That solves a really needed problem in an industry that is desperate for more efficiency, because that is one of the most inefficient industries out there. And I think that everybody that's in staffing and recruiting will agree that this is kind of the thing that needs to they need to be able to help streamline stuff. And I really think Bolna can make that dent that is sort of.
Maybe just one more shout out over here is if you're afraid that your candidates won't like talking to an AI, you can have my word that they will absolutely love it. Because we've actually had candidates come tell us that, I was explaining my project and generally recruiters just nod and they say, okay, and move on. But this guy really asked me in-depth questions and I really like talking about the intricacies of my chatbot project, right? Something like that. Or some people are like, you know what, I felt that I was not being judged because someone was actually listening and there was no bias in their head. So I felt very free talking to the AI agent. We've had a lot of candidates end with, is this an AI call? Right? Just to sort of check. So that's always great experience.
That's what you want,
great
right?
Feedback. Yep.
Yeah. No, this is great. Matty, I am so excited. We're probably going to have to check back with you in 6 months and see how you're doing because I feel like
of course.
You're really going to grow pretty fast. And I'm really excited for you. I'm so glad that we were able to showcase you guys on here and we'll get people definitely, hopefully, testing and calling the AI interviewer, right off the platform. It's fantastic.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah, no, this is great. And for all you investors out there, Matty, they're talking about what first round of seed funding, right? Is what you're doing next.
Yep. Planning to start a seed funding soon. We've raised our first pre-seed check last year from an accelerator called Upeka. You can check that out as well. A pretty interesting AI SaaS focused accelerator. And looking to get into the next round very soon.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be really exciting. And so, Matty, thank you for spending the time with us today. And like I said, we're really excited to watch the future of Bolna.ai.
Of course, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, this is great. So thanks again to Matty for sharing your insights. If you're listening to this and you want to explore how AI can help unlock a few quick wins, just grab a 30-minute call with us in the show notes. But if you're in staffing and recruiting, please jump on Bolna.ai and give it a shot because you're going to be very, very pleasantly surprised in the way that the voice AI agent is. They've come a long way and they're only going to get better. So that wraps up this episode of Future Proof.
Thank you.
What matters in your business and automate the rest. Thanks, Matty.
Thank you.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.